Go Sports! I am that man, your man, the illustrious tour guide Cole Johnson, and we'll talk about the Final Four. Sensitivity or being too rough, we will, of course, have a From the Vault. Dolt of the week, and we're going to go in on the subject. But for now, let's get right to it. Headlines, please. Now, I did mention Final Four, right? Well, we are now on the fast track there. We'll start with the men's, where they'll be playing at the NRG Stadium in Houston starting Saturday. And, of course, the national championship will be Monday. The four teams that are there would be the Miami Hurricanes. They were ranked the number 5th seed in the Midwest. San Diego State. They were number 5 in the South. The Connecticut Huskies, the highest rated team, they won the West. And then there is the East, where Florida Atlantic University is the winner of that region. So those four teams will square off, and we'll find out Monday night who will be the national champion on the men's side. You would say all four are surprises. Of course, yes. I mean, did anybody think that Connecticut was going to blow through the field as they have? No. Did we think that Miami was going to actually beat Houston in the Sweet 16, who was ranked number 1 in the Midwest, and then turn around and beat the number 2 ranked team in the Midwest in Texas? No. They did both. They are now in the national semifinal. You have San Diego State, who, all right, let's face it, a foul at the end of the game with that type of foul, you can let that go. But a foul was called. You play the game. San Diego State hit the free throw they needed, and they go on, and they beat number 6 Creighton, 57-56. And then there is the surprise of them all, the number 9 seeded Florida Atlantic University Owls. My man A. Pizzle, I know he has a smile this wide and has all weekend long, and he probably still is wearing it now, and he probably still will be wearing it until Saturday. Outlasting the Wildcats, Kansas State, 79-76. The Conference USA champions, well, now they get a chance in their second tournament appearance in program history. They get to the Final Four. It is a free-for-all with who is going to win it. People are probably saying that it's going to be Connecticut. And then there's those who are naysayers saying, well, this is going to be boring, and it's not the number 1 or 2 seed teams that are there, or the Blue Bloods haven't made it. Well, all that is well and good, but sometimes seasons are going to be unpredictable. This was of no exception. And we already knew that was going to be the case, because out there, please answer this question for me. How many times was Houston ranked number 1 in week to week in the regular season? How many times was Alabama ranked number 1? How many times was Purdue ranked number 1? It was a hot potato. And then it bounced between like 4 or 5 different teams all throughout the regular season. So it isn't a surprise that this tournament time, we had one number 1 team bounced in around the 64, one bounced around 32, and the other 2 number 1 seeds bounced in the Sweet 16 round. So it isn't a surprise. And actually, it's a good thing. Now, it might not reflect on the ratings because, well, it's not bringing a blue blood program. However, you might have some good ratings per se because UConn's near New York City. San Diego State, although I know it's way, way, way in Southern California, it still is about 2 hours south of LA. And you got Miami, which has a lot of snowbirds, aka New York transplants, who are down there. And you got 2 schools who reside in South Florida. So there you go. The ratings might actually reflect different. If so, good. If not, good again. I don't care. All I do know is I'm happy that we're going to have an exciting Final Four where we don't have to say a team that we recognize is going to win it all, for the possible slight exception of UConn. Now, Going to the women's Final Four, it most likely is the opposite because it is names that we've heard that have advanced. The power of the moment, South Carolina, of course, they advanced, and they're looking for their second consecutive national championship and their third overall under Dawn Staley, the coach of the team. And then you have, some familiar faces too. I mean, you have Kiel Mulkey, who's leading the way for LSU, and they've made it to the Final Four. In fact, this is their sixth, I believe, Final Four appearance. So you do have some familiar names, but you do have some new blood in the women's side. You have Iowa, who's making their second Final Four appearance, the first in 30 years. And you have Virginia Tech, who now is coming in, newborn baby at all. This is their first Final Four appearance on the women's side. These 3 games will start. Tip-off will be Friday, and it's in Dallas. In fact, there will be at the American Airlines Arena Center. I'm sorry. And I'm excited to see South Carolina and Iowa go at it because I think that might be, forget the best game of the women's tournament, forget the best game of the weekend. This actually might be the best game of the whole entire tournament of the year. I don't care if it's the men's game or the women's game. And we're having more excitement bringing forward to the game, and I think we're going to see some really good action there. Again, the women's Final Four tips off Friday. The men's Final Four tips off Saturday. The national championship for the women's game is Sunday, and the national championship for the men's game is Monday. Switching to the pros, staying on the hardwood, Ben Simmons. He is out for the rest of the year. I don't think you heard me. I said Ben Simmons is out for the rest of 2023.
What?
I said Ben Simmons is out. Now, who thought that Ben Simmons was going to rebound off of that horrendous effort in the playoffs when he played his last game as a 76er? That's what I thought. Unfortunately, and I don't want to say this and I don't want to pronounce this, but it looks as though unless we see something miraculous happen, Ben Simmons is catching one humongous and finally to the gridiron, where is this news? Lamar Jackson actually leaked out news saying that he actually requested a trade 4 weeks ago. Now, are we shocked at this? Seriously. I mean, people were all in outrage because the Ravens slapped a non-exclusive franchise tag on him. It basically is a trade possibility. That's really what it is. And I went through all of this last week. And I've delved into it in many other instances and times too when I've talked about Lamar Jackson. But you can definitely look to last week's episode and you can definitely get my opinion as to what I think. But in this case, Lamar has seen that the Ravens aren't going to pay him the money that he wants, and the Ravens aren't going to convince him otherwise. So now they're crossing their fingers and hoping that really no other team is going to sign him and that he would actually play under market value, which is not going to happen. Oh, memo to the Patriots. And no. Memo to Patriots fan. If Tom Brady had to restructure his contract year after year after year after year in spending 21 years there, and Lamar Jackson wants to get broken off his money, do you think that the Patriots would sign Lamar Jackson knowing that they engender, they beg for, they clamor for, they want a level and commitment of selflessness to the point where it will hurt your pockets. And it's sad that people just simply can't think beyond their front of their noses. Oh, well, I guess that's why we make a living doing this. And that is this week's headlines. When we return, we'll talk about Charles Barkley and Kevin Durant. Is it a case of being a bully or is it a case of being too sensitive? But before then, we will take our first trip to the VIP zone when you get back. This is Cole Sports with a Z. I'm Cole Johnson. Right after this, we're going to send an email.
Do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life-holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
I want to show that attainability. I want to show the accessibility of this kind of lifestyle.
From social media to having conversations with friends and family, you always have to put on face and say face.
What brings a smile to my face is the one person that totally believes in me, and that's my beautiful wife, Jody.
I just had to stop because I didn't value myself. I didn't love myself. And it's like, I have to learn to love myself.
Changing the world one conversation at a time. This is Revelations. Welcome back, Cole Johnson, Cole Sports, and Bully versus Mr. Sensitivity. What's going to win out over what? But before we get there, let's make our first of 4 trips to the VIP zone. And for those who want to know why this is important, well, the VIPs are the lifeblood of Cole Sports. And on the YouTube channel, if a comment is witty, or insightful or powerful or impactful enough, it will be, the quote itself will be a chapter in the timeline of that particular episode. So here we go. Victor Locke, 83, or V like 83, or on another show, Vicola. He says, ladies and gentlemen, right about now, it is time for the classiest sports show on the planet. Get ready for Cole Sports with the Z. And now show your love for the star of Cole Sports, Cole Johnson. Thank you, Ed McMahon. I appreciate that, Victor. And I appreciate you as always, not just for showing up for Snowman in the Morning with Cole Johnson, but Cole Sports and Mentality and other shows that we do. You are one fantastic supporter. And I appreciate and love you, brother. Ryan McCarthy of No Credentials Acquired fame, he says, it's Cole Sports with a Z. Let's get classy. I like that. Andrew, another longtime supporter of the show, he says, time for Cole Sports with a Z, the classiest sports show on the planet. That's right, brother. That's right. And Ryan says, look, boring. Call the ambulance because those people are whiny blue bloods. I had a talk with somebody who he leaked out that type of deodorant, but he didn't want to consider himself that. But when he talked about, correct me if I'm wrong here, when he talked about ratings and names that we're familiar with, and I'm like, okay, that's fine and well and good, but that's exactly what I'm talking about, because the NCAA committee is going to hate it because there's no recognizable names. You're saying the same thing. That means that you're a blue blood fan, and so you're not going to like this. So be it. I love it because I think I get tired of seeing names and usual suspects of, okay, it's the same rotation of 8 to 10 programs that's going to win it. It's good to actually have some change, although UConn is there, so you got a familiar name of the 4. Andrew says people calling it, talking about the men's Final Four pool, boring or taking a massive. And I agree with you, Andrew. Victor says, look, those who are calling the men's Final Four trash are blue blood trash. And as for Ben Simmons, Victor says, I feel like Snowman. Who cares? Had to do the faux New York accent the way he does it whenever he talks about this. BS3 Network, aka Ben Sutherland, the owner, the manipulator, the operator of the BS3 Network, where you'll cast this show every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. He says, good afternoon, Cole. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Sutterth. It's good to see you, Ben. I'm glad you're in the throng, and I'm glad you're in the VIP zone. Victor says, those who are calling his Final Four boring, they are blue blood trash. He was clarifying that. And I'm with Victor saying he's wishing you everything is well with you, Mr. Sutterth. I hope everything is fine with you. Now, onward and upward. And there has been a back and forth. So Charles Barkley was saying that Kevin Durant has this penchant for being sensitive, and Kevin Durant attacked via Twitter. And I just had to talk about this because I think this is becoming more and more of a subject, not necessarily because I hate both figures. I actually like them both, but because I really think that you have to nail down what is what, and I'm not sure if people truly understand it. So because of it, I got to send one of these. Email today's NBA fan. CC Millennials. Subject of email. Criticism is not an insult. Body of email. So Charles Barkley was on 60 Minutes, and he was being interviewed about just different things. Because, of course, when you have Charles Barkley on any platform, just about any and every journalist would want to have any type of opinion that would want to come out of his mouth. So they will race to actually ask questions toward him. But chiefly in the crosshairs was Kevin Durant. Yes, the 13-time NBA All-Star, a guy who was a 2-time champion. And Charles Barkley, the Basketball Hall of Famer, has been rather critical of Durant in many different ways. One, as in when he went to Golden State, that it was one of the most punk moves, I guess you could say, of any elite player in NBA history. The fact that he can win a championship being on the bus, but he can't win one being the bus driver when he became a net. And the interview that he just had this past Sunday on 60 Minutes. Barkley acknowledged that Durant is a great player, and he would be foolish to not acknowledge that. So obviously Barkley's not a fool. He also, though, in saying that along with Durant being a great player, that he is, quote, part of that generation who thinks he cannot be criticized, close quote. Now, you can imagine that Kevin Durant did not sit and take that well. So he responded on Twitter a few hours after he saw the 60 Minutes interview. And he replied to a video of those comments. And he typed, tweet. This ain't getting tiring, Chuck. I'll never respect the words that come out your mouth. Fam, just deal with it. Close tweet.
Come on!
Mrs. Durant, are you actually going to come out the side of your mouth saying that Barkley has no room or reason to say anything, and you're going to show that type of disrespect when he's actually speaking fact? And the reason why we're speaking fact is because it's been well documented that you've had a lot of burner Twitter accounts to go at fans who were attacking you. Really? I mean, that is documented. That is proof. That is fact. And having that is an account of someone being overly sensitive. Now, he didn't say that you're a punk. He didn't say that you're weak. He just said that you're sensitive, which I'm sorry, he's right. You had Stephen A. Smith criticize you, and you went after him. You've had Charles Barkley criticize you many times before now. You've gone after him. You've had fans, Lord knows how many, that have gone after you. And you attacked them. You went back with them, at them, just going tweet by tweet by tweet to either insult, refute, or basically demolish whoever had something negative to say about Trey 35 or Trey 7 or whatever number you want to wear now. But anybody who had something to do with saying something antithetical to the brand of Kevin Durant in the form of criticism. Now, I'm not saying that in the form of insults or disrespect, but in the form of criticism, you clapped back at them. You almost with a glee and a sinister grin clapped back at them. So how in the world can he not have that opinion and be wrong? I'm sorry, that is just how you've been. I mean, that's how you've been. Now, do I think that Barkley can sometimes go over the top? A little bit. Like, I remember last year, he went on a Phoenix radio show. He lives in Phoenix. So he went on a Phoenix radio show. And you heard him say that you piggybacked your way to 2 NBA titles being on the Warriors. And that once you joined the Nets, you were then called by him, quote, Mr. Miserable, close quote. How was he wrong? I'm sorry, Durant. How was he wrong? Because from the time you signed on the dotted line, July 1st, 2019, to the time you got traded, which was last month, in that 3-year, 8-month span of being on that team, were you a happy man at any point juncture in time? And I can tell you when that happiness dissipated. It was when you hit that jumper where if you wore a size 13 instead of a 16, you would have clinched a
Game 7
in the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Bucks in 2021. However, it went for naught. And why would you not be Mr. Miserable? I would be, because I was miserable for you too, because the very next year you got swept by the Celtics. And oh, by the way, the teammate that was supposed to help you get the ring, sans Golden State, was the woke people's champion. Uncle Drew. The rebel without a cause. The fan destroyer. I mean, the guy is a space cadet. The guy would rather break down how society is supposed to be a certain way than he is to show that he has handles and can be a responsible teammate. That's just how it is. That's just how it is, Kev. So all of this, and Mr. Barkley is correct, sir. You were Mr. Miserable when you were a net. I was miserable for you. You are sensitive because you created Twitter burner accounts to go after fans. Forget analysts. You went after fans with burner accounts on Twitter. And the weakest move in NBA history, you wouldn't have gotten that type of vitriol if you did 6 years before then on Twitter type quote, "Come on, LeBron, why'd you have to form a super team in Miami? You're supposed to win with the team who drafted you. That's what I'm going to do." Close quote. Do you remember that, Mr. Durant? You typed that in July of 2010. 6 years later, goodbye, Oklahoma City. Hello, Yay area. And it was because you were hearing rumblings and ramblings of, well, you can put forth 30 points. You probably can be the all-time great scorer because you might even surpass LeBron eventually and score more points in the career than he can. But your career won't mean jack until you win a championship. So what do? You leave Westbrook, you go to the Bay Area, you win 2 championships, you go to the finals 3 times. And then you hear the chirps again. Well, that's fine. You got the chips. Heck, you even got 2 finals MVPs, but you didn't do it as the lead dog. Yes, Stephen Curry, that little pipsqueak of 6'3" and 200 pounds, it is his team, not yours. And you won't be really respected until you win a ring of your own. And what do? After the 3rd championship trip and actually hurting your Achilles, you go to Brooklyn. You search for that ring, and you got as close to the Eastern Conference Finals and didn't stiff it there. The closest you came was that jump shot. And you possibly would have lost it because you were losing your big-time players to injury, or they were limping off of it, as James Harden was at that time. Barkley is not being a bully. He's actually just stating fact. He's being truthful. And you are now at the age in the mid-30s now where you have to take that as criticism and say, okay, let me improve upon that. That's not hard. That's not hard. He didn't call out your name. He didn't say anything that sullied your brand. All he did was basically say that you're sensitive. And I'm sorry, there's a scrolls list of reasons as to why he's right. And you can go at him by saying he's fat. You can go at him by saying that he didn't win a chip himself. But you know what? He's like, yeah, you can say that, and you're right. But guess what? You aren't. He could take that criticism in stride, although you would say it in a disrespectful, insulting tone. But he'll take that in stride. Meanwhile, you take you're being sensitive as an insult, and unfortunately, he is speaking facts. There's going to have to come a time, Kevin, where you can't take this literal. That you can't take every slight as if it is a slight. You can't take everything that is critical and turn it into something of, oh, that's a hater. Because that's the problem that we are seeing time and time and time again. If we have something that is not always positive about somebody, that must mean automatically we're a hater. If there is something that we're saying that is not all the way positive, then that means that we are a hater. To you mental midgets who have mental emotional capacity, anything that is said that is of critical nature, that means automatically we are a hater. No, it just means we're being critical. 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 It's not a crime. And basically, if someone is saying something critical to you, it means it is done with the intent and the spirit that you would want to do better and say, oh, wow, this is something I'm not doing. You know what? He's right. Let me see if I can do something to either eradicate it or be better. Not take the stiff upper lip approach and say, hater, F you, and just go about your business, still doing the stank stuff that got you to where you were before. But that's the way of the world, right? It shouldn't be, because it is like what Muhammad Ali said. And in this case, is it not true more today than ever? If you think the same way at 50 as you did at 20, then my friend, you have wasted 30 years of your life. You keep treating people who criticize things that you do and you take it as hate, you will fall in line with the guy who is 50 years old and you're acting the same way as you did at 20, which means you have wasted a lot of your time and not maturing. Please begin to mature and either say, you know what, Chuck, you may have a point, or don't say anything at all. But don't prove him right by, when he's saying you're sensitive, commenting and actually proving that he's right and you are being sensitive. It goes against what you're supposed to do. You're an elite superstar. Please, Kevin, act like one. Cold. Cold. You're listening to the classiest sports show on the planet. Cole Sports! From the vault, a look back at a key moment in sports history. March 29th, 1984. The once proud franchise of the Baltimore Colts left in the middle of the night via Mayflower 18-wheeler. In the midst of snow, driving down in the middle of the night, the truck that was driving away from their Owings Mills, Maryland home went to the Midwest and supplanted themselves in Indianapolis. Well, it's understandable because just that year prior, they thought they had their next Burt Jones in drafting John Elway. However, Mr. Elway, before the draft happened, he actually said to the Colts, if you were to draft me, I will go to baseball. I will not play it down for the Colts. And unfortunately, the Colts had to trade him, and they did, to the Broncos. Now, what makes matters worse is that the owner of the team, the father of Jim Irsay, Bob, was by most accounts a difficult boss. He was infamous for his temper He was known to angrily lash out at players and employees alike. And so he asked in early 1984 for the city of Baltimore to pay for improvements to Memorial Stadium, the home of the Baltimore Colts. But his ability to simply ruffle feathers may have gotten in the way. Although the two sides told different stories of what went on in the negotiations, it simply did not go well. And then the day before they moved, the Maryland State Legislature passed a law allowing the city of Baltimore to seize the Colts from Irsay. Irsay was like, and left Baltimore. To see a sordid history of a team that was rich and steeped in NFL tradition move from Baltimore and go to the Midwest. Bob Irsay throws a middle finger to Baltimore and leaves in the middle of the night in an early spring morning as he went from Baltimore and moving the Colts to Indianapolis on this date in 1984.
From the vault, brought to you by Colts Sport. This is a journey into crime. A podcast journey that tells the stories of those long forgotten or those easy to remember. We go on a journey that reveals mystery, intrigue, and offers more twists and turns than a country highway. We have looked over cases, we've combed over evidence and testimony, yet we still are left with no answers. Sometimes, in order to get a deeper understanding of something, you must return to view. Now available for download for subscribers only. Each episode premieres only on the USA Today network. Join now for just $1 to receive premium content like Return to View. That's $1 to become a subscriber and a Return to View loyal listener. Alicia.
You can't hold somebody to that standard if you haven't voiced what you want and what you're needing from that.
Mika.
If you're not communicating expectations, you're waiting for your feelings to be hurt.
Nicole.
Yeah. A lot of people don't want to take the time out to be alone and to get themselves together.
Ivan.
You got to be willing to work through stuff. And from the jump street y'all done had problems, maybe you don't need to be working through those.
BS3 Network proudly presents Queen 3 and King podcast. Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central.
Welcome back to Cole Sports. Cole Johnson here. Back to the VIP zone before we get down to the get down. Victor Locke says, look, for any one of us calling Charles Barkley mean or a bully obviously has never seen or even heard of him. I agree. I 100% agree because I never looked at Charles Barkley as a bully. I looked at him as a guy who just was a straight shooter. And he still is now. All is 60. He's still a straight shooter. And it's like all you have to do is just shrug your shoulders and say, well, doggone, Chuck, you're right. Victor also says, so Kevin Durant is now dubbed the NBA's version of Will Smith. Oh, ouch, Victor. Oh, man, that's brutal. I can't say you're wrong, but man, that's brutal. Victor also goes on to say, KD's championships were a lot like when Holyfield was champ back in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. People put asterisks to his name because he didn't beat Tyson Ford. Very true, man. Very true. A lot of people did put an asterisk behind Holyfield's name because Mike Tyson was in prison, and they figured, okay, Holyfield's a paper champion because of it. And of course, he proved that he wasn't. But it took many years for that to happen. Andrew says, look, you have to learn to take criticism. It's not always meant to be hurtful and disrespectful. Sometimes it's constructive, and that's what Barkley's comments were. He tells it like it is. Chef's kiss, Andrew, 100% yes. That's exactly how I looked at it. I'm like, okay, what he's saying about Durant is right. And if he was saying it to me, I'd say, doggone, man, that hurts. But you know what? You're right. My history, yeah, I've been sensitive. I created burner accounts to go at the fans. And every time one of you pop off the mouth, I want to pop off back and half. Heck, I've even had my mama take up for me when Stephen A. Smith was talking ill. So yeah, you're right, man. I gotta tone down that sensitivity thing. You're right. But no, that it's not going to come out of Durant because he feels salty and he feels some kind of way about him. Ryan says, look, Cole, that quote about redacted could apply to every player this generation. Praise everything does and never criticize him. Victor says, look, just like bronze sexuals. He also says, might I suggest hooked on Bryans for these fools? Please. And Ryan, to actually further the comments that I talked about, the quote of Muhammad Ali, he says, if you think the same way at 50 as you did at 20, you may have grown physically, but not mentally or emotionally or physically or spiritually. He also says, I have a friend who was a Raiders fan that was also a Yankees fan, and he never forgave John Elway for staying with football. And that's, of course, alluding to from the vault. And I could probably feel that way, too. I think I'll feel some type of way about John Elway spurting the Yankees with the Broncos, too. Brian, he says, oh, I'm late, but I made it to the classiest sports show on the planet. Go Sports with the Z. Look, keep them comments coming because, look, I grow with you all. You all do such a great job, and I love the impact that you all have. I love the comments that you have. I love the intelligence and intellect that you come up with. I created this show for people like you, and you don't disappoint. Thank you for proving me right that you can have intelligence and sports occupy the same space at the same time. And now let's get from the sublime to the ridiculous. Here is the next DOLT of the Week. DOLT of the Week is sponsored by nobody. The winner of this episode's DOLT of the Week is Kyrie Irving, a.k.a. the woke people's champion, a.k.a. Uncle Drew, a.k.a. the rebel without a cause, a.k.a. Uncle AWOL, a.k.a. Kyrita Herbal Tea. Thank you, Ray of the LJPN network. All right. Why is Kyrie the DOLT of the Week? I'm so glad you asked. For many different reasons, I could put him on this list. I probably can put him on here all 52 weeks of the year. But he is on this list this week because we could talk about the greatest sports rivalries. You know, the Celtics versus the Lakers, the Bears versus the Packers, the Red Sox versus the Yankees. But actually, in this frame of mind, in this time of year, and at this juncture in sports, the greatest sports rivalry is Kyrie Irving and fans. And why? In the latest installment of Kyrie Irving versus the fans, the Mavericks went to Charlotte on Sunday. He played his horrible brand of selfish basketball, and of course, he took it on the chin. And during that game on Sunday, Irving pointed out to a fan, and he pointed out to officials, who then removed That fan by security personnel in Spectrum Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. The fan, though, got his money's worth because he let out a vociferous boo as he was ejected. See, it wasn't the first time Irving has been booed in a Mavericks uniform. In fact, I don't think it's been the first time he's been booed anywhere wearing a Mavericks uniform, even in Dallas, probably. So, of course, in that wonderful display of "it ain't me, it's you," they took, the Mavericks did, a 117-109. And then showed accountability, or lack thereof. Quote, "So what?" Look, it's just the way I feel about it. Talking about boos. I've been in New York City, so I know what that's like. You obviously wanted to play well, but there's only 5 people on the court who can play for the Dallas Mavericks. If the fans want to change places, then hey, be my guest. You've got years of work ahead of you to be great enough to be on this level. Close quote.
You've got to be joking me.
You for real?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
Come on!
No! You were 30 years old. Why are you acting as though you are in junior high school and you can't take criticism? It's just like I said in the last segment. For some reason, it has to be everybody's fault when someone wants to put criticism in your direction. And in this regard, an opposing team's fan is criticism. It's the right type of criticism because they're supporting their team. Now, we have LeBron James to thank for this because last year in Indianapolis, he decided to kick out a woman and a man fan who was sitting courtside after just simply jawing with them all game long. And in the middle of overtime, he actually grabs a ref, brings him over to the woman, and embarrassingly points her out and sees the referee call security to escort the woman and the man out of the arena. And of course, you saw her famously go as she left the arena. Thank you, LeBron. You know, I had my partner say that that LeBron James wasn't an icon from the standpoint if he didn't affect anything on the court. Well, I'll challenge that here. LeBron James has done 2 things that would say that he has brought forth change on the court. One is flopping. The second is being rabbit-eared. Now players have the excuse that if I were to say, "Oh man, you suck," the player can point me out in the stands and kick me out of the arena. How booty, how weak, how garbage of that. In fact, on another program, I'd probably hear something along the lines of, "It's trash. It's horrible." Really? You mean to tell me you don't have enough nuts to actually withstand someone talking antithetical to you? You mean to tell me you're not going to take that, bring that within you, take that negativity, have it stir within you, you spit it right back out at them, and you say scoreboard to that same fan? Really? You're not doing that. No, it's, well, the atmosphere has to be perfect, even if it is I'm on the road. Get out of here. This is getting ridiculous. A fan saying something to you is not a reason to kick the fan out of the arena or stadium or rink or diamond or whatever. Now, if you're like a fan, and I remember one time when actually Russell Westbrook was a Wizard and they were playing in Philly and he was going into the locker room. And once he got underneath the awning to go into the locker room, Sixer fan decided to pour popcorn on him. Now, that's a reason to eject somebody from the arena. Would you try to physically do something injurious to the player, like throw something at him? That is worthy of ejection. Saying your mama? Saying you're a space cadet? Saying you're a cancer on a team? I'm sorry, that is not worthy of an ejection. Because unfortunately, Mr. Irving, that's true. And besides, I thought you were tuning out everything that was negative. You know, like you said that you were doing to the media 2 years ago? What happened to that? Oh, I'm sorry. You all of a sudden became rabbit-eared again. Ah, I see. And I remember last year when you were with the Nets, you were loving that drama in Boston when you got to the stadium and they were basically saying you sucked and F you, and you decided to flip them the bird. What happened to that? I could accept that. Do that. But point out a fan to have them be escorted out the stadium? That's weak. W-E-A-K exclamation point. Weak. There is no other explanation to describe it. It's weak. It's weak, Irving. Weak. You are paid over $30 million a year to dribble a basketball, which it breaks down to probably, I don't know, 6 figures a game for you, maybe upper 5 figures. And you mean to tell me you're going to allow a fan who probably won't earn that much money in a game that you earn in, I don't know, 4 years, some of us, you're going to let that affect your play? Gosh. You all are more feeble-minded than I thought. Oh, my gosh. Is it that we are actually walking into the era where we're seeing a whole cadre of mental midgets? Because if so, it's absolutely appalling. I have played athletics. I have heard coaches say to me, look, you're going to hear things that probably is not going to be favorable to you. You're probably going to hear them from the opponent. You're probably going to hear them from the opponent's coaching staff. You're probably going to hear from the fans. But you know what you're supposed to do? Focus on the field of battle. Block the other stuff out. Do your job. And you are in your prime, Irving. You are a veteran in this game now. People take after your cues. And just like I said to your brother earlier in this segment, people take their cues after you. So now you're going to have other mental midgets point out something, or a fan who's basically saying you suck, saying you should get a haircut. And they probably are saying something maybe a little injurious about your family, which I wouldn't say that because I think that's out of bounds. But I'm not that type of fan. But I know some who are, because guess what they're trying to do? They're trying to get on your skin, and you kicking that fan out. Guess what you did? You let them know you got that fan under your skin. So guess what you're going to invite more of? More of those fans to get deeper under your skin. How counterproductive is that? Jay-Z said a famous line. If you shoot me, you're famous. If I shoot you, I'm brainless. And right now, I'm seeing a lot of you in the NBA, and Mr. LeBron James has led the charge for years, and you are picking up the torch, and you are in the gold medal position, sir, Mr. Kyrie Irving. of holding that charge. You are holding that flame high in the gold medal position of being brainless. You have the power to move and remove, fine. But put forth more energy onto the court to win games for the Mavericks than you are off the court and trying to influence the atmosphere around you. Maybe, just maybe, you might get somewhere with this team instead of 11th place in the Western Conference where you're sitting right now. Just a thought. Just a thought. And I don't need to trade places with you. You're playing just as bad as a fan right now, all by yourself. And I'm sure Luka is not liking that at all. When I come back, number 0 in the NFL. I'll talk about that when you get back. But before then, we visit the VIP zone once again.
You have to learn to live with yourself before you can make a commitment of yourself to someone else.
When you go to something that's already structured, like the church, I don't need to go into that thing I'm the pastor. It's like already one set up. You know what I'm saying?
It just had everything. But I learned, you know what I'm saying? Everything I did, I learned from.
So we look forward to seeing you same time, same place. Know that we love you, God loves you more. Continue to stay safe, do the right thing, stay out of trouble.
Conversation that informs a community. Brothers of Legacy. Every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. Quinn.
Moment of clarity. I haven't watched BET in years.
KP.
Drake needs to come back with another triple platinum album.
E Digger.
And then you have Ray J. Like, I can't stand that River Cricket.
The Guru.
Okay, the level of crack she's smoking, I don't want it.
BS3 Network proudly presents the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast, where from card tips to hot topics to meep of the week, anything goes. Live every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Central.
Coming up on the next episode of Cold Sports for you, who won the men's and the women's Final Four? Who would be the men's and women's national champion? How was the first week of the Major League Baseball season? Because it will almost be 1 week removed from the beginning of it. And we're charging toward the NFL draft. Who is going to pick what and where, and who's possibly going to make moves? You know, like Lamar Jackson goes to ... question mark. All that and more. Of course, we're going to go in on the subject, send another email, and have another Dolt of the Week to boot. But that is for next week. But for now, let's go back to the VIP zone because you all are absolute fire, and I love it. Victor says, and now, Stupid University presents Dolt of the Week. My man, Snowman. My man Brian Snow, he says, worthy winner, talking about Kyrie Irving. And Andrew echoes the same thing. He says, deserved winner. And then he's from the New York area, so he would know. Victor says, look, he should receive the Golden Dunce cap. And here's Ryan with, and you have to understand what I'm about to do. These fans are so intelligent that they can actually write ads for you like this one from Ryan McCarthy. Dolt of the Week is always brought to you by Stupid University. Stupid University, where everyone gets left back. Vidya says, wait. So Kyrie got someone kicked out for booing? Well, if KD's the NBA's version of Will Smith, then Kyrie must be the NBA's version of Jada Smith. And my man Snowman says, can we get the Wonder Bread Choir, please? You'll hear a selection a little later. Victor says, thank you, Billie Kay, the most beautiful woman in wrestling. Yes, Jessica McKay, part of the Iconic / Inspiration. Yes, I can't disagree with that. Andrew talking about Kyrie's mental state and probably others around the NBA too. He says, SAWFT, soft. They are. And here is your answer to that, Snowman. Ryan says, and now a selection from the Wonder Bread Choir entitled, Your Ego is So Inflated It Needs to Be Popped. And I might put that selection on tomorrow. I think I like that. Vidya says, clownish act by clownish actors. Could not have said it better, sir. He also says some of the best players do their best work when they are in hostile crowds. Bird, Magic, Kobe, Jordan, Hakeem even. Hakeem's 4 best games he ever played was in San Antonio, not in Houston, San Antonio, where he just waxed David Robinson in 95. Let's just say 3 of those 4. 3 of those 4 games, 3 of the 4 best games he ever played in his career. All of them, they were in San Antonio in 95. Yeah, Malice of the Palace. If that were to happen, then yes, ejections would need to take place because fans were throwing stuff at players. That is not cool. But a fan being a fan and saying you suck or something along those lines, where you know that their aim is to get you off your game however he or she can do it, and you allow them to, well, you made them win just by doing that. Victor says, but wait, Cole. Since he's the woke people's champion, he probably doesn't want to participate in toxic masculinity. Kawhi. He also goes on to say, why don't you talk to some of the people who may have played in a Negro League about booing? Especially if they went to white-only areas and played against a whites-only team. And you can ask Jackie Robinson, even when he played in Brooklyn, how that was. How would you feel if you were Jackie Robinson or Hank Aaron and someone cried because of booing? Yeah, how would you feel in Henry Aaron's case? You are in the midst and in the throes of dethroning Babe Ruth as the all-time home run leader. And he receives letters saying, die, N-word. Don't break Babe Ruth's record, or N-word, you're going to die. I'm not paraphrasing. I wish I was. I wish I was dramatizing that. But he received those letters the summer before he broke Babe's record. And remember, he was a member of the Atlanta Braves. Need I say more? Snowman says, Dear Kyrita Herbal Tea, you fired! And Ryan says, not sure if this is myth, but Christy Mathewson got so fed up with one fan's heckling that he dared the fan to come down to the field and pitch. I'd be cool with that. I would love that. If that was the case, I would love that. I would love that interaction from a player. Like, you think you can do so well? Come on down. Please. I'll hand you the ball. I'll allow you to pitch. That to me I can take. But just throwing a fan out? No. You got to understand that is what they're there for. That is the atmosphere. You may not like it, but oh well, so be it. Anyway, So now we are about 4 weeks away from the NFL draft, and this is normally the time of year where the NFL gets together with the competition committee and owners, and they talk about issues that will concern themselves with the upcoming year, and they review the past year. And there are some things that will happen and some things that might not happen. And what am I going to do? Well, you know how we're going to do it. I'm going to go in. So the NFL now can have players wear a new number. And that number is 0. That's right. The number 0. It can be worn. In fact, you've been seeing the Jaguars' Calvin Ridley all over social media claim that he's going to wear the number 0 for the upcoming 2023 season. For those who don't know, Calvin Ridley, he got suspended for a year for gambling on football. Yes, that's a rule. You can't do it. That is how it goes. Anyway. So players can wear number 0. However, you know how ridiculous those roughing the passer flags were, where you could sneeze on the QB and it was a 15-yard penalty? Well, apparently that controversial call is going to remain controversial because those roughing the passer penalties will not be reviewed. So during the annual league meetings, and this year is taking place in Phoenix, the NFL approved the use of the number 0, but they declined a suggestion to make roughing the passer penalties reviewable by replay. Now, that one rule intended to keep quarterbacks safer, it has come under intense scrutiny, but it is still not going to be altered. Why? Because they want to keep the quarterback safe. Almost to the point where you got to play touch on the QB. NFL owners decided against making roughing the passer penalties reviewable by replay. Now, this was a Rams suggestion, and I should agree with that suggestion because there were many, many hard-working defensive linemen who got wonderful sacks on QBs, legit sacks on QBs. I mean, it was like one of those you just had to dap up and say, man, you beat the lineman and you got the quarterback down. That lineman did his job, yet the yellow flanky Yankee flew. And we're going to see that again for another 18 weeks of the regular season and unfortunately a few weeks of the playoffs too. Roughing the passer penalties have faced scrutiny from players and teams on the receiving ends of that, as well as media, as well as fans. Because most of us disagree on the initial penalty because it's just a straight tackle that is getting flagged for roughing. That is a personal foul. A regular tackle on a QB is considered a personal foul.
What?
A regular tackle on the QB can be considered a personal foul. That is what I find ridiculous. But anyway, I could go on and on about that. So there's other rules that have been affected. And other rules that were thought of, like did the NFL approve 4th and 20 to replace onside kicks? Well, the answer is no, and the Eagles suggested this, but it's going to be considered further. More than likely, I think we may see it possibly on the suggestion of how things are playing out in the XFL and the USFL in the spring. And I think we might see some sort of adoption of that rule somewhere down the road. Now, what other rules were approved by the NFL? Well, here's some who were. The adjustment of the play clock following instant replay reversals consistent with other timing rules. That has been touched up and advanced. That was something that was suggested by the Chargers. Something suggested by the Texans. expanding the replay official's jurisdiction to allow for review on failed fourth down attempts. Others saying you could change the definition of a launch to leaving one or both feet, meaning the launch of a tackle. Tripping now is a personal foul. The penalty for illegally handling the ball forward consistent with other illegal acts, such as illegal forward passes, now is a rule. It is a penalty also. Another penalty, illegal punts, drop kicks, or place kicks consistent with other illegal acts like illegal forward passes. Also being instituted, preventing the offense from benefiting by an extension of the half as a result of their foul. And to clarify the use of the helmet against an opponent by removing the butt, ram, or spear language from Article 8 and incorporating those actions into impermissible use of the helmet. Now, back to the roughing the passer penalty. You're going to now change up the game so drastically to where you're going to now encourage defensive linemen to ease up before they actually do their job and bring the quarterback down. These guys get paid millions of dollars in incentives to sack the quarterback. Yet you want to protect the QB so much that you're not willing to see if you actually flag the defensive lineman or the outside linebacker or the defensive tackle, because more than likely it's going to be one of those three positions players who's going to actually sack the QB. You probably get some from the safety and some from corners and some from middle linebackers, but more than likely outside linebackers, defensive tackles, and defensive linemen. Positions that get paid, that if they bring the quarterback down to the ground, they get paid millions of incentives. You're now going to have them ease up because they don't want to hurt their team by having them march back 15 yards unnecessarily. And yes, I will call it unnecessarily because we've had these penalties mess up a game. In fact, the Falcons lost a game where it was 3rd and long. They got a sack, and the sack was clean. No helmet hit, wrapped the QB around the waist, and brought him to the turf, and it was Tom Brady. And the next thing you know, you see something yellow fly in the direction of the tackle and the sack. And then, of course, it was a roughing the passer penalty. They marched it 15 yards downfield. That was the end of that game. I'm sorry. The game is physical. The game is not meant for the weak at heart, even for QBs. Now, you've already written it to the rule where you can't have defenders hit below the knees. You already have it to where you can't have the defender hit anywhere near, let alone at, the face of the QB. Now you can't even bring him to a tackle, all because you're scared of having another Tua Tagovailoa incident, which it should have been that case anyway, because the Dolphins allowed him to play 4 days after he suffered a concussion so that he could suffer another one. And I don't even fault the defender of the Bengals for bringing him to a tackle. He did his job. But now you're going to have these defensive tackles, these offensive ends, these outside linebackers ease up and really not do their job. I'm sorry. If I were to be a head coach, I would say to my defensive coordinator, coach them to do the exact same thing. And if they come up with fines, heck, I'll pay the fines. Because it will be now a lesson of we are going to intimidate you. And if a regular sack is going to be flagged because many of these roughing the passer penalties were regular sacks, then we're going to keep doing that because doggone it, we're not going to affect the play on the field. And you got too many of these referees who are doing it. So as excited as many might be for the fact that we will have skill position players and possible defensive backs and safeties where 0, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Because what should matter is that the game is spiraling further downward by having to have defenders become passive. And they had to become even more passive because they don't, and they shouldn't, and they will probably think to not injure the team's chances of victory because a simple tackle of a QB might draw a 15-yard penalty. You all have to get something straight, NFL. Yes, the QBs have to be protected, but this is still going too far. You got to regulate the refs because they'll throw it. They'll throw that flag if a defender even sneezes on the QB. Come on now, you know better than that. Jeez. All right, the final time. Let's go to the VIP zone. Victor says, look, when racism was loud and proud back then, but Kyrie wants to cry about booing. Yeah, exactly. Brian Snow says, yes, Vin Scully's call on April 8th, 1974, a classic call. And he says, Vin Scully understood the moment. Yes, he did. And he actually stated it as Aaron was rounding second, going to third. Victor Locke saying about good Lord, about Calvin Ridley. Well, he is a 0, so I guess you're cold, Victor. Ryan says, look, I've been saying this since last season. Allow roughing the passer and defensive pass interference to be reviewable. Agreed. Because I think those calls are becoming really ridiculous too. I agree with you, Ryan. Victor says the Bears should probably propose the yardage for first down should be for 5 yards instead of 10. They'll still go for 3 and out, but it would help a bit. God, that's cool, Victor. He also says, look, we still need a clear-cut definition of what a catch is in the NFL that all referees acknowledge. And, oh, good Lord, and Ryan McCarthy. Look, Victor, it'll reflect how much Calvin Ridley was paid in 2022. Yeah, 0. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my. Thank you to the VIP zone. You are awesome, and I love you guys so much. You are what makes this show tick, and I'm so glad I do this because I do it for you. And if you feel led to donate to this program, go to cash.app/$host Cole Johnson. That's cash.app/$host Cole Johnson. Well, that's all the time I have. Thank you so much for joining me this week on the classiest sports show on the planet. And for all of those who are watching on BS3, all those who are watching on YouTube, all those who are downloading on Spreaker and listening to the sound of my voice, I thank you and I love you. Let this continue because we are intelligent sports fans, and it's time for us to stand up for intelligence and sports to merge. For now, I am Cole Johnson, and this is
Thank you for tuning in to Cole Sport. To download this episode, go to Spreaker and type Cole Sports with a Z. For apparel, go to Spring and type Cole Sports VIP Boutique. That's with a Z. To reach Cole Johnson, go to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. This has been a Comey Media Incorporated presentation.